let's start by introduction to those that have joined MVHQ recently, if there's any newcomers here. My name is Kfish, Jose Kfish Ventura. Not related to Ace. He's not my uncle. That's an old joke from school. It's gotten old. Yeah. So I've been in MVHQ since the golden days. I didn't mint my token, but I was in pretty early, I think. Basically joined to learn what the traders do. I was pretty new to the NFT space and I wanted to learn from the best. And this is where I learned from the best. So this is home. Ever since, I've become the Don Kfish, helping to solve puzzles, args, technical stuff, kind of the technical guy. I did a gas class with JJ once upon a time, and now we're going to talk about RPCs. Because it's the flavor of the month, I think. RPCs and bots and automation. I think that's part of where things are going. And we're starting to optimize. At first, our tooling was limited. We used to look at the activity tab on OpenSea to see what was moving. And then other tools came along that did that better. And then other tools came along that did that even better, or that leveraged that data. And then tools came along to press mint for us or to press buy for us, etc. So every day that passes, we optimize a little bit more the automation, basically trying to transform this into like a Sims where you just look at your logic being executed. But yeah, today RPCs. And if we have time, which I think we will, we can do some Q&A about smart contracts. Let me share my screen. Sharing screen, sharing private keys. Done. RPCs by Kfish. This is an art piece. I would mint this. But basically, what is an RPC? Like, what does RPC even stand for? It's a remote procedure call. You're basically sending a request somewhere to perform a procedure. It's like, hey, I want you to execute this. And this is the information that I want you to execute it with. And it's basically the building blocks of communication with the blockchain, right? There's software that's running, that what we call nodes today, and they consist of basically two clients on Ethereum right now, an execution client and a consensus client. Ever since we moved to proof of stake instead of proof of work, we have these two clients running, and these two things together working can create what we know as a node. But a node is, I don't know, a word that we just throw around, but I don't know that a lot of people really know what it means. Basically, the execution client is what processes the procedures. Those remote procedures, they're being called to the execution client. So whenever, our wallet is talking to the blockchain, in reality, what it's doing is it's sending remote procedure calls to an execution client somewhere, and it's getting a response from that client. So a node just consists of these two things. And now there's a ton of information on like the official docs, and like, what is this? What is a client? What is this is a remote procedure call, like get balance, get storage at, get transaction count, estimate gas. All of these things are things that are remote procedure calls that are wallets or scripts or websites, everything that uses like Web3 basically call. And the consensus client is what's running on, it's called the beacon chain. I haven't really delved a lot into the consensus stuff. But basically, it keeps things in sync with the execution client when it comes to like the headers of the blocks and keeping the chain consistent. Like the execution client basically, listens for RPC calls, executes them, holds the chain state, and then the beacon node or the consensus client, it's the consensus algorithm, enables the network to achieve agreement, right? It's like, hey, we agree on stuff. Yes, that's good. And then in this little diagram, if we go from left to right, we have like websites, wallets, scripts, anything that basically is going to interact with the blockchain using some Web3 library. MetaMask uses Web3 libraries. We have like Web3.js, we have Ethers, we have different languages. Like basically the all of the logic that runs is translated into a bunch of RPC calls. And as we move farther to the right and we look at what the Ethereum client is, you could replace what says Ethereum client with a node, basically. That would be a node. And it's running the execution client and the consensus client. The consensus client here is called beacon node in this picture. It's the same thing. The execution engine is the execution client. And they both have the peer-to-peer stuff running because this is a network, decentralized, and they do look for peers to get all the information and keep the state up to date. So this is basically how you interact with the blockchain. And I think the real reason why we're here today is because there's people that are still using the default RPC with MetaMask. And if you think about it, we just saw that the execution client is basically what performs all of the logic, right? It's doing all of the transactions, all of the procedures that are being called. And when you use the default procedure, the default RPC, that comes with MetaMask, there's a ton of people that are using it, right? So if you think about it, this server that's running an execution client somewhere and a consensus client somewhere, this server is basically tuned for bandwidth, right? It's tuned for mass use. It's not tuned for speed. It's not tuned for, I want to make people snipe faster. No, it's just like, I want people to talk to the blockchain. And it's free. And it comes with MetaMask. And so people just use it without really knowing about it. When you look at the network tab on MetaMask, what you look at when you select Ethereum mainnet, you're basically talking to Infura. Infura is an RPC provider. There's many RPC providers. There's Alchemy, there's QuickNode, Infura. I don't know. There's a ton. I think there's one called Blast or something. But it, like I said, this isn't tuned for performance, right? This is for speed. It's tuned for bandwidth. If you take a look at the networks tab on MetaMask, you'll see that the RPC URL that's set is mainnet.infura.io. And you can't change it. There's people that are complaining about this, like, hey, MetaMask, let me change the Ethereum mainnet RPC, please. But you can see it has a little lock. They don't let you do it. I don't know why. They probably have a business deal with Infura or something. I don't know. But they don't allow us to change it. We can, however, add a network. And when we add a network, we can use a private RPC. And the cool thing about private RPCs is that less people use a private RPC, And so there's less stress on the clients that are running on these servers, making them perform better. And they're tuned for speed, right? And performance. It's basically like buying a car instead of taking the bus. And there's nothing wrong with taking the bus, but if you're racing, you probably prefer a car. Some buses have that like expressway. We don't have that here, not with RPCs. The expressway is the RPC basically. So there's nothing beneficial about using the default one that will get you like speed or something over a private RPC. And adding a network to MetaMask is super easy. You basically just click on the networks, add network, go to the networks tab, add a new network manually. And then you just specify a name, the URL, the chain ID. One is for mainnet, and then there's other numbers for other chains. The currency symbol for mainnet, it's ETH. If you were on Polygon, it would be Matic, right? And then the chain explorer like Etherscan. Save, and voila, you have your RPC ready to go with MetaMask. You okay, bud? Cool. Take a glass of water. All right. So, some of the benefits of using a private RPC. So there's less saturation, right, for the execution client. So it's meant to perform better. Transactions are processed faster. Now it's a tricky one. It's not that like, oh, my transaction's going to be, like 100% going to work. No, it just gets there faster. It gets there, and there's supposed to be less latency between you and a private RPC. Latency is basically the amount of time it takes to make a round trip between you and the server. So the closer you are to the RPC, the less latency you should have to it with it. Yes. Yeah, you get there before the default slowpokes, right? Some people using the default RPC, sometimes they're like, oh, my transaction got lost, or I sped it up 1 million times, but nothing happened. It's not appearing, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's just that, there could have been a problem with the execution client with the default RPC. It was saturated or something, and it just didn't work. But all of these benefits, they just mean that you get to snipe faster, you have less failed transactions, you get into earlier blocks. It doesn't do something like win you a gas war because of gas, though. It just makes your transaction available beforehand to compete, right? It's not going to reduce your gas. Unless some magic happens, but I don't think so. And the best part is that you already have access. Just because you're an MVHQ, you already have a free trial with 2node.xyz, which is the RPC service that I created with Kfish and Chips. And basically, you just go to the website, log in, and add the RPC. It should be super simple to add. And the benefits, you can test them for yourselves. So, any questions so far? I haven't been reading the chat. Did I lose everyone with the diagram?
Yeah, a quick question is, how do we actually test and measure the speed of one RPC versus another?
A great question. So there's tools that you can use to compare. Some people add multiple RPCs to, let's say, NFT Thunder, and they'll select the one that has the less, like, it'll show the latency for each one. But to actually test this, like for yourself, there's some software that you can run that it's a little bit more advanced, but basically it's like spamming the RPC with a bunch of RPC calls and comparing it with others to see which one has the less amount of like errors and the best response times. Currently, if you wanted to compare, I would use something like NFT Thunder or these bots that show you like the latency. We are working on having like a comparison tool eventually so that you can compare. But there's like, for example, on QuickNode, on their website, you can add an RPC URL and they'll run like a test against it and see how much faster or slower it is in QuickNode.
Thank you.
No problem. Let's see. If we have our MVHQ and Ledger but mint from a hot wallet, is there still a way to add the node? Yes, there is a way. There's in the engagement section of the Discord, there's a thread or a section for 2Node. You can just tell me like there what wallet you want to use and I'll switch it for you. We're working on a version where you can basically switch which wallets you want to use with the node. As you can see in the screenshot that I'm sharing, it says you have one of one wallets in use. Later on, you'll be able to edit which wallets are used so that you can delegate basically to any burner or something. Can you explain the sandwich scenario when trading tokens, and does RPCs help protect you from those? So this one's interesting because the sandwich scenario, there's something that's called the mempool, where it's like where transactions go to sit. It's like the lobby, and they're waiting to be picked up. And you can observe the mempool. And people that are trading tokens, like, I don't know, on Uniswap or whatever, if they're sending their transaction using the default RPC, they're going to the public mempool. People are looking at that. And then there's times where someone can grab the transaction that you sent in the public mempool and create a sandwich where they send a transaction before and a transaction after. So they basically increase the price of the token so that, or something like with a buy, and then you sell, and then they sell, and there's a difference in price and they take profit. It's called like a sandwich attack. I don't know if I completely butchered what a sandwich attack is, but basically, if you're in the public mempool and you're trading tokens and you have high slippage, there's a chance that you can get sandwiched. The way to protect yourself from that is by using, there's RPCs that do not go to the public mempool. There's things like flashbots, where basically the public mempool is skipped. It's like transactions are broadcasted to a relay of miners. They're relayed to a network of miners that are not using the public mempool, and they're doing stuff with like bundled transactions. It's a little bit more advanced, and I think I would probably need some material to show you here on screen to explain how it works. But there are RPCs that help and protect you by not being part of like the public mempool. If we have a bot like Sensei or Waifu, it's still an upgrade to install your node over their default RPC for faster sniping. Well, you're going to have to benchmark against their RPC, but it's like it's going back to MetaMask. I'm going to go back here, right? If there's a default RPC, right, that people are using, you have to think about, how saturated it's going to be and what is it tuned for, versus a scenario where that you're using something that's tuned for speed. At the end of the day, the benchmarks tell the story. There's more to it. Like there's a logic layer that it can run within an RPC so that it's like, optimizing for the transactions, like depending which RPC call is actually being sent, it can decide whether to use like the super speedy node or a more bandwidth optimized node. Are there any concerns or risks using certain RPCs? I don't think that there are concerns or risks using RPCs because basically, let's see, the back to this diagram, like the Ethereum client, these two things, they are basically what have to be there for something to be a node, right? Now, there's people or services that track things like IP, like, oh, this request, where is it coming from? I'm going to track that IP, right? There's like more centralized ones where they will like disregard certain transactions, just having like an entire logic layer in front. So I think that there's risks around privacy, or concerns around privacy, and the other ones are just on performance. And 2Node is tuned for speed with a logic layer on top that we want to use to build out tooling that will benefit traders. So there's a small latency because of this layer on top, but we're working on features that we think are going to outweigh any like small latency that runs. That's there. What node client am I using? I'm using Geth and Lighthouse. So execution client Geth and consensus client Lighthouse. Recently been experimenting with that, running it in the cloud and seeing if there's some fun that we can do so that we don't just reduce latency because of the speed and location and bandwidth, but actually reduce latency by changing where things are being executed. It's almost as if imagine if MetaMask was on the node, it wouldn't take any time for MetaMask to make a call to the RPC. I know that there's folks in the NFT Thunder thread that are talking about spinning up VPS and setting up their own nodes and running the bots on the same node. It's basically that's basically the ideal scenario where you reduce the latency to basically nil. Like it's I don't know, 1 or 2 ms instead of the 25 or 30 that you can get by being away from the node and running it on your local machine. Let's see. All right, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to a little game. Would you like to play a little game? Let's do it. Let's do a quick quiz. So whoever wants to play, go to this URL and enter the pin. I'm also going to share share it in the office hours chat. Everyone's going to get drained. And I have it muted because there's like music and stuff. So I'll let you all listen to your music. There's only 40 people that can join because this is the free version, okay? So free trial. It's not, I don't have the NFT to have the full version. I do want to listen to the music though, it's fun. Yay. Ooh, I can kick people, but I won't. All right, let's just give it a minute for people to join. We have 18 contestants so far. 19. Yo, K-Dog. Remember when people thought we were the same person? It's like, oh, yeah, because Fish and
where'd you put the link? Sorry.
Office hours chat.
Well,
It's also on the stream.
K-Dog is here, or if someone just put the name K-Dog, but there is a K-Dog somewhere, and people used to think that I was also K-Dog, and that K-Dog was also me.
You're just trying to win access to your own node.
Exactly.
What does the winner get? 1,000 wallets?
No. Just the honor of beating everyone else.
That's the tastiest honor.
Yeah, it's also the one where I don't have to pay for anything. All right. We're gonna start this up unless anyone in chat says wait. Ooh, winner gets lifetime 2 node. But the questions are not hard enough for such a prize.
I'll throw in a big buck.
Okay. Winner gets a big buck. Watch them pump. All right, we're going to start.
Oh shit, your screen's faster.
I hope it doesn't show the answers. Okay. Some people are thinking. Some people weren't paying attention. It's fine. 3, 2, 1. All right. Almost everyone got it right. Those that didn't, nice try. Oh, look at Ricky Eagle. So fast.
With the quickness.
Yeah. The faster you are, the better. It's almost like an RPC. The consensus client executes transactions. Okay. It's getting interesting. False, right? The consensus client does not execute transactions. The consensus client makes sure that things are in agreement, but it's the execution client. that executes stuff. Johnny Solana. Beware, Ricky Eagle. All right. MetaMask default RPC provider.
Misclick. No way.
Redo.
You can't do that. Oh, there we go. We have the misclick. You see?
Oh my god.
I is the only one that got it wrong.
No, shut.
Exposed.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
We have a new winner, a new number one. I wish I could scroll all the way to the bottom to see Kai.
Oh my god.
I wish I could all the way from the bottom.
Remote procedures are called to the execution client. No misclicks.
I might not have been listening during this part of the lecture.
Kai, you can only use that excuse once, okay?
Oh man.
Yeah, the execution client is the one that runs all of the remote procedures, right? So it's like when MetaMask calls like get balance, right? It's calling it to an execution client somewhere. Damn. So close. I should have made these harder.
He's not just a PR guy.
What is a benefit of using a private RPC?
Oh man, I fucked up. Yeah, it's definitely that one.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew I had to put one of these in here. It's like, oh yeah, all of that looks positive, right?
Except for the guaranteed part.
Well, and the less gas part. You know, it's like
Right.
you don't, because the gas that you send with a transaction doesn't have to do with the RPC. It's like you can save gas with less failed transactions, but at the same time, a transaction that passes might use more gas than if it would have failed anyways. So it's like less gas is not it. And then guaranteed transactions, no, because you can still be in a gas war, right? And if everyone is using the fastest RPCs, there's nothing that guarantees that you'll get through. And that's why we see the level of optimization that we're getting to, where people are starting to spin up their nodes, their VPS on AWS, and putting their bots on the same place so that there's less latency. So the reduced latency is really like the benefit from this list. Okay. Smart people prefer default RPCs. This one's for the fast clickers. Oh, there's people that are still thinking about it. This would be a good one for a misclick.
I think they just quit.
And I think they're smart people. That's why.
Oh, right. Yes, someone did it on purpose. Hey, Kai.
Oh
See you
no,
again.
Johnny, what happened?
And let's look at the winner.
Oh.
3, we have Ricky Eagle. Number 2, Johnny Solana lost the first spot. And number 1,
No.
Wait, did you just play your own quiz?
No, you were looking at everything that I was doing. I was moving my mouse around and stuff. It's not like I could have had this on my phone, my other hand answering the... Never mind. Yeah, cool.
Let's go.
So, the winner gets a big buck. Congratulations. And okay, so the basically when I ran a little poll to see what people wanted to me to talk about, what topics interested them the most, we had smart contracts and RPCs basically were the two subjects. Now, I didn't have time to put together a presentation on smart contracts. I think that it would be the change of context to speaking and showing solidity after talking about RPCs and showing diagrams would be painful. So I just decided to keep an open questions and answers section on smart contracts. And if there's, a lot of questions, I could always do another one of these specifically on smart contracts. And let's see. Feel free to open up the mic and ask a question or type it up. We can talk smart contracts. We can talk about... Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to ask about Merkle proof, because sometimes on smart contracts, when minting from contract, you have to get a Merkle proof, and I don't understand what it is or where I would get it.
Okay, so the Merkle proofs are basically, there's a data structure that's called a Merkle tree, and a tree has a root, and then it has a bunch of branches or leaves. And the root is stored on the contract. It's like one hash that's stored in the contract. And then the proof is basically just a series of bytes that can be used to verify whether an address was used to generate that root. Now, in simple terms, what this does is create a mechanism for allow listing where someone just has to make sure that they have the root in the contract, and then on the website, the Mint website, whenever someone clicks the Mint button, that the proofs are sent for that specific wallet. That's the use case if you're minting from a site. Now, if you wanted to mint from a contract using the proofs, you would have to find your proofs and send them in the contract, like as a parameter, like when minting from Etherscan, right? And usually the proofs are either hard-coded into the website or served by an API. And when it's served from an API, people usually share it on like, put your wallet here and you'll get your proof. And it's just like a bunch of text. And yeah, that's basically a Merkle proof. It's what's used to verify that a wallet was part of what generated that root that's stored in the contract.
Cool.
And you get it by API or the website source.
So there's no way to get one's Merkle proof straight from the contract. Is that right? You need some sort of external data source that the creator is providing.
That's right. That's correct. Now, there's people that break Merkle trees if they're like really small Merkle trees, and it's something that I don't really know much about. It's like, but it's fairly or very uncommon, and I don't think it's something that we would be doing for these like whitelists that are hundreds or thousands of wallets.
Hey, Kfish, I got a question about RPCs.
Yeah.
I noticed that some RPCs are like gated. Like we'll talk about your RPC, 2-node. If it's gated. How, since there is no credentials being passed, at least that I can see, how does an RPC know that you are allowed to use it? And I guess a two-part question: what would happen if you try to use the RPC and you don't have you aren't subscribed or have the token? Number two, specifically for 2-node, where in the dashboard, where do I set like what wallets I can use, I guess?
Yeah. So part one of that question is because there is no authentication credentials that are being sent effectively, what has to be used as authentication is the RPC URL itself. And that's why people they're like, oh, don't share the RPC URL, don't share the RPC URL, right? So a lot of the node providers out there, they just basically look at the activity of the RPC URL after the fact. And if they see that there's been abuse, then they'll revoke the token of that RPC URL. With 2Node, you can see that when you put use RPC and it takes you through the steps, you have a unique URL that's for you. And we use that to do the authentication. So we generate that URL if you have purchased subscriptions or if you hold NFTs that are part of the community plans with 2Node, and they all stack. And then at the time of sending a transaction, that's when you actually have the ability to check whether or not a wallet, because the wallet is sent as part of that RPC call. Well, not sending the transaction itself, but there's a step before, and that's where the gating actually happens.
Makes sense. Yeah, I didn't realize that the URL that I have for 2Node is unique to me. So then you can see how many times I've used it, what different wallets I've used it. You can see if I'm abusing it. It totally makes sense.
Yeah, and then for the second part of the question, we're working on a little dashboard where you will be able to see the wallets that are currently in use, and you will be able to edit that to add in the wallets that you want. So for now, it's basically as soon as you use the RPC with a wallet, the moment that you're going to send a transaction, for example, as soon as we see the actual wallet address, we associate it with the amount of wallets that you have. So if you were to, for example, purchase a subscription of 2Node and then switch to another wallet and use 2Node with that other wallet, then it would become associated with that wallet count. The problem right now is that you can't change it on the UI, and that's something that we're working on. But if anyone needs to change the wallet that's being used, you can DM me, or we can talk in the engagements in the 2Node thread, and I can do that for you.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I see a question of what free RPC would you recommend? So I was doing some tests, and I think that the one that I used for a long time was Alchemy, but Alchemy has fallen behind in the latency aspect. So I would check out Infura, create an account with Infura or QuickNode. The thing about free RPCs is that what they limit is the amount of requests per second, right? So let's say if you're trying to bot a mint, or if you're trying to snipe something with a bunch of wallets, right? The amount of transactions that you send at the same time, that would be limited with one of the limitations of a free RPC.
What's the best paid RPC?
2Node.xyz.
Let's go.
So with 2Node, what we tried to do is a different model where it's not something that's token gated, but it's something that you can access for the amount of wallets that you want. And it also has the ability to be part of communities, so that let's say if a community purchases a plan of, 1,000 wallets, and we say it's imagine a community of 333 people, it's like that community, everyone would get 3 wallets for every token that they held, right? Because it stacks. And then if you purchased a subscription of 10 wallets, then you would have 13 wallets available. versus the don't share the RPC URL and everyone has the same RPC URL. And then it's more of an art, like, oh, I hope that it does. I hope it just performs. This way we can guarantee performance for everyone. Is it easy for normies like me to get API and generate my own Merkle proofs? You wouldn't generate your own Merkle proofs. Basically, if you opened up the network tab and saw an API call, and it was like, oh, hey, it goes to api.something.com/Merkle/ your wallet address. And that returns, like if you entered that on the browser, for example, that could return the Merkle proofs that you would have to send in the contract call. So it is easy, like once you learn how to inspect the network tab and see all of the communication when going to a website. If you have one that I can look at, I could show you. Like something that has like a wallet checker. Those are usually the ones. All right. Well, when you do, let me know. And I'll show you.
This JoJo one today had a. Oh wait, maybe they had a wallet checker.
Okay. Well, we have 10 minutes left. If there's no other questions, then we could end it early. That would be, giving everyone some time back to sniping and degenning. Does Node work on other chains like Polygon? Yes. So 2Node currently works with Polygon, Arbitrum, Solana, and Mainnet. A few others on the way. I see people typing. Napoleon blown apart. How can I be of service? Can you use the node for DeFi stuff? Absolutely. What are your rate limits? We don't have any rate limits. We basically have zero rate limiting because it's on this per wallet and the amount of wallets that you have. And we have locations. We have Singapore, Frankfurt, North Virginia, and California as the data centers. What would be a specific case where Node would be useful for DeFi? Slippage, for example. If you have if some tokens, you set the slippage amount, then it's easier for the swap to be within the slippage limits if you have a faster node. And competitive gas, obviously. And yeah, locations, I'll just say US East, US West, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Yeah, definitely recommend having a MEV protection for DeFi. Don't get sandwiched, people.
Yeah, for those who don't know what sandwiching is, Kfish explained it a little bit, but basically, it'll be like if a bot will play middleman, they will buy something for cheaper and sell it to you for something, sell it to you for much more expensive, and there's nothing you can do about it if you're not protected. Like I've seen transactions that are 150 ETH, and the guy lost 30 ETH without even noticing. He just gets sold on a much higher price because the bot decides to cut in, buy before you and sell to you, and basically they can do whatever they want with you.
Well, Kfish, maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was more like they front run. They see a bot can see a transaction coming in for like a swap of a token, see it, and then up the gas or whatever, get in before the block of that transaction, buy up all the tokens, and then sell it at a higher price back to the original requester because they front ran that.
Yeah,
right. Isn't that what it is?
That's what I was saying. Yeah, middleman. He's basically buying it before you and selling it to you at a higher price.
Yep. And it's like with Flashbots, you can bundle transactions and you can bundle them in a certain order, and they don't even have to be your transactions. So for example, if I saw your transaction and it has like low gas and you're selling something, then I can send a Flashbot bundle with like very high priority, and I'll just put your transaction between two of mine, and that's how the sandwich happens. What is the best form of MEP protection now that Eden not serving that purpose? To be honest, I don't know what the best one is right now. I remember seeing that there were some RPCs that had MEP protection, and even if you use like 1 inch, there's like options for MEP protection as well. But using Flashbots is good. Any other questions? All right. Well, I have a question for you. If you are using a default RPC, why would you keep using it after what you've heard today? Or are you going to...
Lazy.
Because MetaMask doesn't let me delete the standard one, and I forget to change it when I relog in.
That's true.
Okay. Well, my invitation to you is to look for a private RPC. You can use 2Node because you have it already as part of the trial, but I'm not going to force it upon you as the only one. There's others. There's others that are gated behind NFTs that you might be holding. You might already have access to them. My invitation to you is to add it to MetaMask. Use the add network. If you still have questions on how to add the RPC, we can talk about it later and I can walk you through it again. But don't be a slowpoke. Get in the expressway, use a private RPC, be faster. Don't miss snipes because of it. And with that, I think we can call the office hours done for today.